Hello everyone, today we'll discuss some of the GMAT data sufficiency strategies. We discussed what GMAT data sufficiency is in the last video, and this is a little different than the type of problems we are used to in general. We all know how to do problem solving questions, but many people struggle to understand how GMAT data sufficiency works. So I've tried to put a list of different strategies that you can start following in order to increase your accuracy with the GMAT data sufficiency strategies. Okay, so let's get started. So strategy number one, the first strategy is read the question stem carefully and keep the information in your head while solving the problem. So we all know the question stem gives you the question that you need to know, but it can also give you valuable information sometimes. For example, in this example, if you see what is the value of x, and statement 1 tells us x equals to 4, x squared equals to 4, that means x could be the 2 or minus 2, right? However, we don't know for sure if x is 2 or minus 2, so statement 1 doesn't give us the answer and doesn't help. But statement 2 tells us x equals to 2, so we know for sure B is the answer, because the statement 2 tells us what's the right answer. However, if we just change the question stem like this, what is the value of positive integer x? Then you see the question stem tells us that x is a positive integer, and while we are trying to solve this, we need to keep that in our mind. So we know x is a positive integer, and now let's look at the options. So statement 1 tells us x squared equals to 4, which means x could be the 2 or minus 2, and we know x could only be positive integer from the question stem. So we know for sure x equals to 2. So statement 1 is sufficient to answer this question, and statement 2 is also sufficient. So we can say the answer would be D. So see, this is the same question, but just a little tweak in the question stem, just a little more information can really change the answer from B to D. So we have to be careful about those, and you have to keep any information given in the question stem in your mind while you're trying to solve these kind of problems. Okay, so now our next strategy, what I'm saying here is statement 1 cannot contradict statement 2. So for example, here we are asking the same question, what is the value of x, and we know from statement 1 x could be either plus 2 or minus 2, because x squared equals to 4, and then from 2 we know x is greater than 0. So although x doesn't give us a definite value of x, so statement 1 doesn't give us a definite value of x, since we know that statement 1 cannot contradict with statement 2, we can combine these two pieces of information and say, okay, the correct answer is C, since statement 2 tells us x is greater than 0, and statement 1 tells us x could either be 2 or minus 2. So the value of x should be positive 2, and then our answer here should be C. Okay. Next question. You do not need to do the actual math if you don't really need to in order to answer the question if you have sufficient information. Okay, so for example, if you're asked what is the value of x, and then you are given this small equation, you don't really need to solve it if you understand that solving these will give you a positive value of x and a negative value of x, but you will find two different values. That's the only information you need. You don't really need to solve this to figure out what are the different values of x you'll be getting. Okay, and then if you combine that with statement 2, it tells you, okay, x has to be the positive number that you got from here, but you didn't do the math, and it will serve you enough time in the exam and help you to score well. So you don't really need to do all the calculation as long as you can get the key pieces correct. So if you know x will be a positive and a negative, and then you don't really need to find out the exact value by solving this equation. Okay, and the answer for this question will also be C, because you get two values, one positive and one negative, by solving this equation in statement 1, and then statement 2 tells you the value of x is a positive 1. So you combine these two and you get your answer choice C. Strategy 4 would be dividing the answer choices in two subsections, A, D and B, C, E. So what do I mean by that? So if you know, when you're trying to solve this question, if you look at statement 1 and you see, okay, this is not sufficient information for me, you can right away eliminate these answer choice statement, these answer choice, that is D, okay? Because if statement 1 doesn't give you enough information, then D cannot be an answer as well, and A is not the answer as well. So you are only left with B, C and E. So if you have to make an educated guess, you right away know, okay, A and D cannot be the answer, so I have to pick anything between B, C and E. And if you can get lucky and if you can take an educated guess, you have a higher chance of getting that right. The next strategy here, I'm telling you, if you identify the question type in data sufficiency, then it's easier to answer. So if you're trying to answer a yes/no question, you don't really need to find out the exact value of x, okay? You can just find out if, for example, if it's asking you whether x is positive or negative, you just need to know if x is positive or a negative number. You don't really need to know if x is 5 or x is 10 or x is -5. You just need to know if x is below 0 or more than 0. That's the only piece of information you'll need to answer that question. However, if you're asked what is the value of x, in that case you really need to go deep and you need to find one single answer for x, and until and unless you found that one single answer, you don't really have enough information to answer this question correctly. So keep that in mind. If you know what type of question you are answering, and if you're conscious about that, then it will help you during the exam to identify what are the pieces of information you'll need to answer this question correctly. Moving on. Strategy 6. Strategy 6 is solving only hard questions doesn't prepare you for all easy and medium questions automatically. And why do we need to know about that? Because of how the GMAT algorithm works. So GMAT basically will give you an easy or medium level question, and if you can get that correct, it will give you an even difficult one, and if you can get that correct, you will get an even difficult one. But if you answer any question wrong, the next time you get an easier question, and then the next time if you get that correct, the next question will be more difficult than the one you answered previously. But if you got that wrong, then the next question will be an even easier one. So just because how it works, you only if you are not solid with your foundations, if you don't really can always consistently answer all the easy and medium questions correctly, there is no point in practicing only hard questions, because in order to get to those hard questions, firstly you need to make sure you can get all easy and medium questions right on a consistent manner. And please do not assume practicing hard question will also prepare you for all easy and medium questions, because it never does. And there are many people who did that, who tried that. They practiced only the hardest of questions and they never saw those questions in the exam. They got stuck in the easy and medium difficulty ones, and then their score was not as good. So be mindful of that. You have to cover all your bases. Not only you need to practice hard questions, but you need to make sure you have a solid foundation. You got all your easy and medium questions correct. Okay, moving on. Strategy 7 tells you have to try to avoid answering wrong to a series of consecutive questions, because if you do that, the GMAT algorithm punishes you basically. So let's say there are two candidates. There's candidate A who answered 25 questions correctly, and then there's candidate B who also answered the same number of questions correctly. However, candidate B missed a bunch of consecutive questions, but candidate A didn't miss a bunch of consecutive questions. All her wrong answers were some in the beginning, some in the middle, spread out, and some in the end. So in that case, candidate A will score better than candidate B, just because how the GMAT algorithm works. If you make consecutive mistakes, then the algorithm punishes you more than if you make the same number of mistakes but your mistakes are spread out. So be mindful of that and try to avoid answering wrong questions consecutively. Okay. Strategy 8 would be mindful of your time throughout the exam. There are many candidates who spend a lot of time in the first 10 to 15 questions and later they realize, oh, they don't really have enough time right now. So they try to hurry up, and as a result, as I said in the previous strategy, they can end up making consecutive mistakes in multiple questions, which will penalize them more. So be mindful of your time. If you think at any point that you are getting behind, then if you find a question where you think there's less chance that you'd get that correct even after spending 2 or more minutes, then just make an educated guess and move on. You don't really need to get all 31 questions correct in order to score well in the GMAT. You just need to make sure you are answering most of the questions correctly, consistently, and you have to finish the whole exam. If you do not finish all the exam, then you'll be penalized as well. And that is what my last strategy is. Basically, I'm saying make sure you answer all your questions. Again, if I bring two examples, if I bring an example of two candidates who's like candidate A who finished his exam and he missed 4 questions, or he got 4 questions wrong basically, and then there's candidate B who couldn't finish exam but answered the same number of right questions as candidate A. Who do you think will score better? It will be candidate A, because candidate A actually finished the exam, and because he finished the exam but candidate B couldn't finish the exam, candidate B will get a lower score, because you get penalized if you cannot finish the section in full. So make sure you finish the section in full, make sure you are mindful of your time, and make sure you are not making consecutive mistakes. If you follow all of these, these will help you not only with the GMAT Data Sufficiency section but also with the Quant section as a whole. I hope you employ all these strategies in your preparation and while you are practicing, and this will help you to get a great score. And you can thank me later. And for now, you can subscribe my channel, and if you have any other lesson requests, feel free to let me know. You can comment down in the comment box below.